Fox News alert, breaking news coming out of Boston this afternoon, where we are awaiting the statements now from the Boston bombing victims and their families. After convicted murderer Dzhokhar Tsarnaev addressed the courts moments ago after saying almost nothing during his trial. Let's go now back to Molly Line, live outside the courthouse in Boston. So bring us up to speed. What did he say? What were his emotions, Molly?
Well, he faced directly forward, not towards the folks that were sitting behind them, to all the people that had come here to take their last chance to say a few words before he's ultimately put away in prison until his execution. Instead, he faced forward, facing the judge, and he began by praising Allah. And then first, he thanked the people that helped him, his own attorneys. He said the people that made the last 2 years very easy. And then he thanked those who testified on his behalf, despite the pressure, he said. And then he also thanked the jury and the court. Some of those jurors were present in the courtroom today. Then he decided to say that he now would apologize to the victims, the survivors. He admitted guilt at the beginning of this apology, saying that he did do it along with his brother, removing any doubt that he might deny that in some way. And he said in the days that followed the bombing, he began to learn the victims' names, he began to learn some of their faces, and then throughout the trial, he began to see more of their faces and learn more of their names and to hear their stories. He said their burdened souls, and he said to all those who got up on the podium, he listened to their suffering, their hardship, and he in a strange way, sort of gave a compliment, talking about the strength and dignity of those people. He acknowledged that what happened was horrendous, and he said he wished there could have been 4 more people that got up there to speak, so that he was essentially sorry for the lives that were taken, he said. But the damage was done, and it was irreparable damage. He acknowledged, he said, I am Muslim, his religion is Islam. He said that is the only God, Allah, and he prayed for mercy for the deceased and also prayed for relief and healing and strength. He asked Allah for mercy on his brother as well and for all of those present there in the courtroom today, and he ended with praise be to Allah before the judge ultimately made that decision, that death verdict that was handed down by the jury official afterwards.
All right, Molly Line reporting live for us. Thank you so much for your updated reports. Stand by if you will. In the meantime, Chris Plante, syndicated radio talk show host of The Chris Plante Show, joins me. Leslie Marshall, syndicated radio talk show host of The Leslie Marshall Show and a Fox News contributor. All right, I know that you've been paying attention to what's been going on since we started the real story 30 minutes ago or so. Let me go to you first, Leslie. What are your thoughts about the fact that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev finally decides to, I don't know, show some emotion and address the court?
I was surprised that he spoke, and I'm not buying his redemption. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I think that he and his brother wanted mass carnage, that these lives weren't enough. I don't know how, if at all, this could weigh into an appeals process. I really don't even think he cares whether he lives or dies. And I think it's terrible for him to talk about his beliefs or his religion, because it taints it for billions of people that are peaceful and not like this guy.
Great point.
I don't trust what he says. I don't believe the remorse. And I think, if anything, it was probably painful for the victims and their families even to hear his voice. But hopefully he will be silenced for good after this.
You know, it's interesting because we are going to hear from the victims' families, Chris, in just a moment. We're still waiting for them to come out of the courthouse here, and they're going to tell us what they thought about that. So, Chris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to second everything that Leslie said. How about that? I'd like to agree with everything that Leslie said. And I think, you know, his statements are reprehensible. The idea that he would murder people and then pray for their well-being is disgusting. It shows how twisted and tortured this ideology is that was behind the murder of these people in Boston and the maiming of so many others, along with his brother. It shows how awful and psychologically twisted the ideology is as it continues to rage around the world. It's a little sample of the insanity of radical Islam.
You know, it's interesting because we just had attorneys on about 15 minutes ago, and they said it actually doesn't really affect the appeals process at all, unless they can maybe, you know, prove that he wanted to tell his story of remorse earlier and was not allowed to do so via his attorneys or something like that. But the truth was in how he acted in court, was it not, Leslie? Because when you're listening to that painful and horrific testimony of the families who lost their children, of people who lost limbs, I mean, for him to not ever shed a tear or show any kind of remorse during that time, to me, that was, if he felt any forgiveness for himself or for the victims at that time, he would have done it then, right?
Yes, and also he claims he was fixing his hair at a video camera in the hallway. He was, you know, shooting somebody, flipping the bird, as we used to say, from Boston, where I am originally from. And, you know, and again, some people say, well, now he's seen the faces of those he's killed, the victims, especially that young boy. But he had that opportunity in court. And I agree with you, Gretchen. There was no visible showing of remorse of any kind, not anything on his face, no expression. And that's one of the reasons that I don't buy this redemption speech, if you will, today.
All right. While we're still waiting for the families to come out, I just want to switch topics for a quick moment, Chris, because there's something else significant that happened today, and that's the political fallout from the Obama administration's new policy on paying ransom for hostages. So some lawmakers have been warning that this could have dangerous consequences. Other people think it's a good idea. Chris, where do you stand on this?
You know, it's a policy that has worked for us for decades, for more than a generation now. It minimizes the appeal of taking Americans hostage. And what President Obama did today, I think, is effectively ring the dinner bell for radical Islamists, for the jackals of radical Islam around the world, because we now have a price tag on our forehead and a target on our backs, and we will see negative consequences from this. I understand that you might want to allow families and even corporations to negotiate behind the scenes in subtle ways to try to secure the release of people, but for the President of the United States himself to come out and ring the dinner bell the way that he did today is very disturbing, and it is going to lead to bad things. I'm actually traveling next month overseas in areas where you might be concerned about such things, and I have to be more concerned now than I would have been yesterday.
All right, fair points. Leslie, do you agree or disagree?
You know, as a mother, and I know you are too, Gretchen, by any means necessary to get my kid back, even if it would possibly bring charges against me. I don't think what the president did will affect decisions of people. The problem here is, I don't agree with Chris 100%, but here is my problem. And it's not even about negotiating with terrorists, to be honest. It's more about negatively affecting possible rescue attempts or any kind of work being done by Interpol or FBI, CIA to try and get that and other hostages back. That's my main concern.
All right.
And so I'm not sure it's done as bad as Chris has said. I don't think that. I think that these ISIS are going to kidnap people and kill people because that's what they want.
All right. Got to wrap it there, guys, because we're still awaiting the families to come out in the Tsarnaev case. A lot going on today. Chris and Leslie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Gretchen.